everybody. Welcome to Start Something Big Radio, and thank you so much for inviting me into your life tonight. I'm your host, Gwen Elliott, and I'm super psyched about the show as we have a really exciting guest. And here at Start Something Big, we're committed to bringing you the best interviews and information and hopefully the best inspiration so that you can start something big in your life. And our guest today has started a really big career in the media, and she also has some really incredible advice if you're interested in getting some major media exposure for your brand. So without further ado, here's the interview, and just a heads up, it was pre-recorded. So I am thrilled to introduce to you an amazing woman, a lady who's blazing a trail in her career in the media, both in front of the camera and behind the scenes. Welcome to the show, Sara Lynn Cauchon.
Hi, Gwen. Thank you so much for having me. Good to be here.
I am honestly so thrilled to have the chance to interview you. I know you're a very busy lady, but you're also somebody who seems to have found a way to just do it all. So I'd love to just start off by asking you to just kind of run down what it is that you do.
What it is I do? Oh gosh, it really depends on the day. I try to do it all. So I am the show producer for a show on CBC called Stephen and Chris. And I am also the host of a show called Domestic Geek, which airs on the YouTube channel Coral TV.
Fantastic. Both of those jobs are really, jobs that a lot of people would look to and say, wow, she's very successful. Like, how did she do it? So my question is, how did it all begin?
You know what? It now feels like eons ago. I actually started when I was 15. My dad's always worked in radio, and I started as a call screener at his talk radio station. And I used to get up really early Saturday and Sunday mornings and go down to the station with my dad. Our show started at 6 a.m., and I would do the call screening at the station. And then when I was about 17, I went to an open casting call. And the show was on Leafs TV. This is when digital networks first launched. And it was an open casting call at the ACC. I remember it so well. And 800 people came out, and I ended up getting a call back. So it was a huge coup, just so amazing at that age. And that was my first ever on-camera hosting gig.
So you beat out 800 other young, ambitious ladies to get the role. So how long actually was that contract for?
So I did the show for about a year. We shot every weekend for the entire year, and it was sort of a kids' game show. I think it's still on air today, in fact, somewhere in the world, but it was called Kid Zone. It was a lot of fun. I mean, as a first experience, it was amazing and totally surreal, of course. And looking back, I probably would have done things a little differently, but I'm sure most people can say that about their first jobs. So.
Well, what would you say you would have done different?
I think I was young and bright-eyed and idealistic, but I don't think I was quite prepared for the job. I don't think I had done enough research as to, what and how I could be better at it and great at it. So I think that's something that I probably would have done differently then.
You've had a lot of really interesting jobs in the media. What would you say after that contract? You're still very young, you're in TV. What was your next move? Did you know that you wanted to stay in the media, or did something come up, or how did you know how to do your next step?
To be honest, when the whole experience was finished, I thought, oh, that was fun. Now I'm going to go and do something else. Maybe I'll go back to school. Maybe I'll do, I wasn't sure at that point. I think I was 18 then. And sort of fate came knocking. I basically, I got a phone call one morning. This is 2 weeks after the first show I'd done had ended. And it was a friend that I had worked with at my dad's radio station when I was 15. And he was now a producer, a TV producer. And he called me out of the blue one morning and said, hi, I'm producing this new show. It's geared towards young women. Would you be interested in coming in to audition as the host? So I said, sure, absolutely. Went down, did the audition, very intimidating, big studio in downtown Toronto. And he called me back that same day, said I had gotten the job, and asked me if I knew anyone who might want to be my co-host. So I put forward my best friend's name, and her name was Joy, and she came in for an audition, got the job, and Girls TV was created. And Girls TV was a show that we both hosted and segment produced for 2 years for YTV.
Wow, imagine just that seems like a dream job situation where you're young and producing and hosting and doing it all with your best friend. um, Curious to know, what is it like, to do that kind of job with your best friend? Were there fights? Were you close the whole time?
It was, honestly, even as I tell the story, it seems too good to be true. It was such a dream job. It had its good and its bad, of course. So here we are, we're 18 and 19 respectively. We are now hosting this national TV show. We're also segment producers. We've never produced anything ever. While we're half leading this glamorous life where we get to interview celebrities and travel and do all these amazing things, the other half is learning how to paper edit and tell a story and make a segment make sense and what B-roll you need and things that people who had been educated in the field would already have experience with. And here we were sort of learning on the fly. It was totally surreal. And she and I mean, we both bonded over the experience, and we learned a lot about our friendship, right? Because there were definitely times where we fought. We ended up living together at the same time too. So here we are living in a little apartment in downtown Toronto, like 400 square feet, and hosting this show together every day. So we spent a lot of time together in those years.
And I understand you're still friends today, so
Best of friends. She is, she's done incredibly well. She is a producer for one of HGTV's biggest shows now. I mean, it definitely changed both our lives for sure. And the trajectory of our careers, just unbelievable.
That's actually really interesting because especially in Canada, if you get some really big success, a national show, and working, in front of the camera and behind the scenes, doing it all, it must have been an interesting kind of transition when you went on to your next gigs. So I'd love for you to kind of just run down some of the decisions that you made over your career so far that has helped you get to where you are today.
Half of them I feel like I was responsible for, and half of them I feel like really just happened by accident. Mm-hmm. So I left Girls TV when I was offered an opportunity to host a show for HGTV called Rooms That Rock.
Yes, awesome.
And it was just an opportunity that was too good to be true. It was just too good to pass up. But at the same time, it was impossibly hard to leave not only my co-host, but my best friend and the show that really we had built together. So I would say that was probably the toughest decision I've ever had to make. Loved Rooms That Rock. It was one of the best experiences and really a highlight in my television career. And then, I think the biggest decision that I made was to come behind the camera. And again, did I make that decision? Did that decision get made for me? It's sort of a little bit of both. Because, there just wasn't an on-air opportunity. So I ended up behind the camera as an associate producer and sort of continued my education behind the scenes. And it was probably one of the best things I ever did because it's made me sort of a well-rounded person. And I really do believe in a lot of ways being a host helps me be a better producer, and being a producer helps me to be a better host. So mm-hmm. I'd say that decision was pretty huge.
Yeah, I love that because, a lot of people, they see the idea of being a TV host and it looks really glamorous and exciting, and the media builds it up to be, like you're a superstar. What have you found is some of the good and the bad about being a media personality?
Oh, that's a great question. The good is it's one of the most exciting, interesting jobs you can have. And I say that with a ton of humility. It's just something that I've so enjoyed doing. The bad is that it's fleeting. It's very much sort of a fair weather thing. And what I learned, having been because it happened to me when I was so young, was that it doesn't last forever. So you really do need to have other interests. You really do need to have other skills. Because for very few people will it carry you from the beginning of your career to the end. So that would definitely be the downside of that. But even that downside has its own upside.
But it's interesting because being in the media business, there are those times where you have those highs where you've got that great job and you're able to walk into rooms and say, this is what I do, and it's so exciting. But then there's also those times where a contract ends and you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing now. So so I'm wondering, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced, or dark moments, and how did you overcome them?
Well, it's so fascinating because when I tell people, about my career, what you don't hear about are sort of the moments of unemployment that I've encountered. And I have certainly, I've been doing this for more than a decade now, and I've gone for months at a time without a job. So I've bartended, I've waitressed, I've been a poker dealer. You actually wouldn't believe some of
Really?
the things I have done to make ends meet, trying to keep this dream alive. Um, the recession, when we first went into the recession, I was working at Global, and there were huge layoffs at that time in the media business, and I was one of the casualties, and I didn't work in the industry for almost 18 months. And I would definitely say that was the scariest time, because the reality was it could have all ended there. The industry was, no one was hiring, and the longer you were out of it, the harder it was to get a job. So there was definitely a moment where I thought, wow, this might be the end of my career. So what's next, sort of. And I was so fortunate that an old friend called me and offered me a position on a show that he was producing. And so grateful once I was back in the industry. And I will say that experience has totally changed how I look at being part of this industry, because I do know how blessed I am to work consistently.
I mean, yeah, that I just appreciate you being so open and honest about, just how real it was for you. Because I know a lot of people, especially people who are just starting out, if they're not working in the industry, they're really, hard on themselves and they don't know
Just
what to do. And yeah, so I just appreciate you saying, especially where you are today, and being able to look back and just say, yeah, this happened to me, and you can overcome it. So now I'd love to just jump into some advice,
okay.
because you're pretty much in the advice business in the shows that you do, and the web show that you host. So what kind of advice would you give to young people in the media who want to start out but are not sure where to begin? What would you say to them?
I would say the first thing is to take whatever job is offered. And I think that's something a lot of people have a hard time doing. Um, I don't think I'll be the first one to say to anyone, getting your foot in the door in this industry is the most important part. And the second most important thing is getting noticed. Um, you know, being eager, looking like you really want to be there, asking questions. And my, the biggest piece of advice I could give anyone is to do whatever you can to find a mentor, because it really makes a huge difference in this industry. I've been so fortunate to work with some of the most incredible producers who have taken me under their wing and taught me everything they know and have helped me get where I am today. And one day I hope to just be so lucky as to be able to do that for someone else, because what better gift could you give someone?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that would be my single biggest piece of advice, is to find a mentor, someone who can sort of show you the ropes and walk you through it.
That's really interesting, and I know the idea of having a mentor, somebody who looks out for you, offers their advice from their experience. And I guess I'm wondering, what's your take on how do you go about getting a mentor?
Oh, that's a good question. I think really you have to you have to, like I said, get your foot in the door first. And when you identify the kind of person that you look up to, you know, and it doesn't necessarily, for example, have to be a producer. It could be a videographer. It could be anyone on your team, and make it clear to them that your goal is to learn. I think people are shockingly open to teaching when they're asked, but few people are going to give up their knowledge, you know, freely. And I think it's a huge compliment for someone to come to you and say, listen, I really want to take the next step in this industry. I really want to become better at what I'm doing. Can you help me? Is there advice you can give me? Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And if someone's reluctant, then move on to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think more people than you realize want to share what they know.
Do you think it would be smarter to reach out to somebody while you're in a job, or doing the old cold call or email or tweet or Facebook message? What would, you know, be most attractive to you as you're in a mentor position?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess just doing it while you're in a job is you know, better in terms of access, I guess. So it's sort of a natural thing. But I don't think that it's wrong to reach out to people that you admire on LinkedIn, on Twitter, maybe not so much on Facebook,
Yeah.
but I don't think I wouldn't call it overly aggressive to reach out to someone and say, hey, listen, the show that you're working on is exactly the type of show that I'd like to be working on someday. Can you give me some advice? I think people are more often flattered than not by that sort of, you know, someone reaching out to them in that way.
Love it. I love it. Awesome. I hope someone takes that advice and runs with it. But hopefully you don't just keep getting all these like messages now. So I'd love to switch gears for a second and just talk about your role on Stephen and Chris. So as the show producer, you know, you and working on that show, you have the ability to have people be featured on the show and have their message, you know, broadcast out to millions of people across North America. So I'd love to hear your take on, as as an entrepreneur, if an entrepreneur is watching this and they want to be on the show or be on a television show, how do they do it? Tell us the good, the bad, the ugly of how to actually pitch yourself to get on a TV show.
Um, that's a great question. You know, we get approached all the time, and the first thing I tell people, and will continue to tell people forever, is if I can't find you online, I can't help you. So it doesn't have to be a fancy website, but you need to have a website. And more importantly, beyond a website, you need to have video online. So if you're approaching me to be on the show, I would say my number one thing is where can I see you? Where can I watch you in action? Now, even if that's a straight to camera video you've shot on your iPhone, I'm totally fine with that. It's not a matter of production value or the quality of the footage. I need to see how you interact with a camera and, you know, in the case of our show, with an interviewer. So certainly I would say video is the number one thing. And it's so easy nowadays because of the YouTubes of the world, you really can do it for almost nothing.
Perfect. So video, get your videos out there, everybody, and get your website up. And you know, I'm sure you get hundreds or thousands of pitches over your career to be on the show. What really stands out to you after, you know, all those emails you've received?
I think what I'm always looking for in any guest for any show are good ideas. So it's beyond just you're a character and here's what you do. It's what kind of content could you cover on the show? You paint me a way better picture of what you're capable of if you write me and say, here are 5 great ideas that I think 5 things I could talk about on your show. I think that is a huge advantage over someone who's saying, you know, I'm an expert in entertaining and there's no follow-up to that. So it really gives me a better sense of who you are and what you're capable of if I know the kinds of things that you can speak to.
Right. So don't just be vague. Be very specific.
And include ideas. Like, it's really important that, you know, you're more than just a face or a talking head, that you can bring something content-wise to the show is huge.
Perfect. And then would you say too that people should always go through, people ask me this too, they're like, should I get a PR person to pitch you officially, or should people just do their own research, try and find your email and just send you one? What do you like better?
You know what? I have no preference. I think great talent needs to be found no matter what. And, if whether it's you emailing me directly or you're going through a PR person, the reality is we are always looking for great talent in our industry. So if you're that person, then you need to be getting in touch. And LinkedIn, I would say, has really created an atmosphere where that is a lot easier to do for the average person than it used to be. So it used to be that only PR people could get in touch, with the producer of a certain show. That's not the case anymore. You really do have direct access to these people. So I would say email. Email is definitely the best start. And if you don't hear from them, email them again.
How long would you say? Because this probably is something you deal with a lot.
It's so hard to say because I've run into people in person and said, "Oh my God, you're a great talent. You would be great on the show." And they said, "Well, I've emailed you several times," and I always feel awful. But like anyone else, you really, when you get a lot of emails, you definitely, some fall through the cracks. So I'd say keep emailing, and then don't be afraid to follow up with a phone call. One phone call is usually enough. And hopefully someone will get back to you eventually, either with a, we're not interested, I'm sorry, or with a, I've passed your info along to someone else who, might be in touch.
That's great. I know, I really appreciate that, just, candid advice of how to get on a show like Stephen and Chris, because so many people, here media exposure will help you really expand your brand, be really big, and, you're just telling the truth, giving it to us straight. So thank you for sharing that. I know it's going to help a lot of people. And also, just wanted to get back to you for a second, because you've accomplished so much, and I mean, who knows where you'll be in 10 years or what you'll be doing, but I'd love to just, put it out there. What is your big dream? What's the next big thing you want to do?
Honestly, my big dream changes all the time. So, I've wanted to be a motivational speaker. I've wanted to travel around the world. Really, my big dream right now is to create and sell my own show. And I think that, a lot of people in our industry, that would sort of be their holy grail, is to create something from scratch and see it come to fruition. That's a dream come true for anyone who's a producer, I think.
That is amazing. Is there any, to get specific, any specific networks that you would love to be on? Or
I don't have anything specific in mind yet, but I promise I will let you know if I when I figure it all out, when I figure out what that concept is.
All right, well, I can't wait, because I know, looking over your career and the different jobs that you've had, there seems to be this thread of female empowerment, and you've been a columnist for a magazine that was about empowerment and helping girls kind of figure out, navigate their way, through life. And I'm just kind of curious, is that a conscious decision to take these jobs that are very, inspiring?
I guess I was very fortunate to work with women who really took me under their wing. And I think something that I would love to do in the future is to give back by empowering young women to go after their dreams and reach their goals. So I guess it is intentional. I'm just very passionate about the power of young women if they put their minds to something, that they can really have whatever they want, however they want, if they're willing to go after it. So anything I can do to facilitate that is, I'm happy to do it.
I love that. And I mean, even, taking the time today to be on the show and to share your advice, you're already continuing to spread the good vibes and the positive message. So thank you so much, Sara Lynn. Last question is just, where can people connect with you if they want to reach out?
Oh, definitely follow me on Twitter. I'm at Sara Lynn Cauchon. And on YouTube, find us on YouTube. YouTube.com/coral is where we can be found.
Perfect. And I know from watching these episodes, they are so information packed and entertaining. So everyone needs to go there and check out the shows. So again, Sara Lynn, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you and refreshing to hear, all of your insight. So thank you and all the best in all the future endeavors you're up to.
Thank you so much, Gwen, for having me. It was awesome. Really nice talking to you.
All right, I'm back with you on the air. And now, how amazing is Sara Lynn? It's not too often that you have the chance to speak with someone who will be so open and candid about the highs and the lows of their career. So we're very appreciative, Sara Lynn, of all of your honesty and just giving us the real scoop, the inside scoop about how to get yourself on national TV if you want to pitch yourself. And again, to connect with Sara Lynn, head on over to Twitter, and that's at SaraLynn, youtube.com/coral, and of course, www.cbc.ca/Stephen and Chris.